ito, in response po to our just good Senator Pangilinan, hindi po technical na or rules, no? Yung aking ini-invoke dito, kundi yung, actually, it's substantive dahil ito ay nakasandig sa ating sa batas. Salamat po.
Naitri pa rin ho tayo sa week 2 ng impeachment trial nitong si Vice President Sara Duterte dyan sa Senado. Doon ho sa unang round ng oral argument ng depensa at prosecution, nakita nyo naman ho talagang namayagpag ang depensa. Sa pangunguna nitong si Atty. Michael Poa, palakpakan ho natin. Winampaso niya ho si Bugs Bunny doon sa kanilang naging unang sagupan. Reset ho muna tayo, isang like at isang subscribe. Masaya na ho tayo dyan sa mga gusto sumali sa ating community. Yung join button nandiyan lang ho sa baba. Continuation ho tayo ng nangyayaring bakbakan dyan sa Senado. Yay!
Bago mag-recess
Galing niya to,
ang
Nico.
mga senator judges para mag-usap sa caucus, nais kong sambitin sa record na binabati ko magkabilang panig, partikular si Congressman the Honorable Chal Jokno, ganyan din si Atty. Poa, sa isang mahinahon, malumanay, maginoo at magalang na diskurso at debate kaugnay sa may tuturing nating kontrobersyal na isyong ito. At inaasahan ko, yan din ang magaganap sa caucus at sa aming pagbabalik.
Balagbagan. Balagbagan ho yan mga kababayan. Parang nakikita ko na. Itong si Tuta Soto at itong si Ping Lacson Bultago, nakabalandra na yung katawan nila dun sa harap para sabihin, ipasubli na yung mga dokumento na yan.
Matapos nito, Senator Judge Alan Cayetano is recognized.
Wala pa tayo sa caucus ha. Nasa plenaryo pa tayo, nasa korte pa tayo. Pero palagbag na ito si Sen. Alan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Very eloquently said. Before we go to our favorite subject, recess, the prosecutor was going to say something about Monday witness. Can we hear that? Because if I don't want to preempt, but can we hear that? Because if they're not going to have witnesses on Monday, I have a proposal.
I'm sure they will. They were in fact on the verge of announcing it.
No, because, Mr. President, this is what I wanted to say. We do need a caucus, but after hearing both sides, I really have many questions, and I think we should really dapat mahimay. But after hearing them, I think there's a couple of issues we will agree on. But I'd rather ask my questions on Monday. So if everyone agrees, then we can caucus, but allow them to adjourn. No? Unless someone wants to ask after our caucus.
We will hear the lead prosecutor. However, Senator Judge Cayetano, it is the predisposition of the presiding officer, given that we don't have any witnesses today to settle this matter and this issue today. It's the only matter for us to discuss anyway.
That's my point, Senator Judge. No? I'm reviewing the rules. Hindi naman tayo tatagal pag per legal issue kasi nakalagay naman not more than 2 minutes eh. So, meaning for example, for me, issuing the subpoena is not one issue. Whether the subpoena is to the VP or to her husband is two separate issue. Peso account or dollar account is a separate issue. Whether or not the company's accounts, etc., should be subpoena is a different issue. But for me to decide, I want to ask the prosecution and the defense about that. So medyo mahaba-haba talaga.
To answer the Senator Judge, we have a precedent that I think, if I remember correctly, it involves the good gentleman himself. When then Senate President Enrile made a ruling with respect to the request for the issuance of a subpoena against the former Chief Justice Corona and his family. The gentleman agreed with respect to not issuing the subpoena against the Chief Justice, but disagreed with respect to not issuing with the family.
No, I was correct there. That was the first, the rules of court says pwede pagka son-in-law. But I was overruled by Senator Enrile. I appealed, the body agreed with him, so even if I was correct, I was overruled. But my point is, Mr. Presiding Officer, that was one simple issue. That's why I didn't argue. I'm saying this seems to be like 2 subpoenas, but there are several subject matters, AMLA, etc. And remember, this is Article 2. What's our assumption? August or September pa to iti-take up eh. So I'm just saying, so for example, no, we all agree on the ruling. It benefits one side. We should tell them why we ruled that way so that if they file a motion for reconsideration or they go to the Supreme Court, malinaw din yung ruling natin doon. There are substantive issues here. There are some issues as eloquently said by Congressman Shel Jokno. Alangan naman bago ako ng stand kung pare-pareho yung issue about let's say bank account. So you know my vote on that, di ba? But my vote on Chief Justice Corona doesn't mean it's the same vote if it was on his spouse and the companies that are under his name. I can tell you honestly right now, I don't know what to vote for, what my vote will be. But I do know that these are 2 important issues. Even the definition of definiteness and the definition of fishing expedition, I want to pursue that with them.
With the permission of Senator Judge Alan, can we discuss that in caucus?
Yes. So I'm just saying, if we're going to discuss it and maraming magtatanong, do you want them to go home and we can extend till Thursday next week or whatever?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
We can advise
I
them
submit to
properly
the
at
presiding
the
officer.
appropriate time. Senator Judge Pangilinan.
Now, just to reiterate the earlier manifestation of the presiding officer, we agreed to go on caucus after the presentation,
Yes.
after the oral argument. So,
Bida-bida ka eh. Pambira ka eh. Kung merong, sino gusto maipis, ikaw pinakaunang kamay magtataas dyan eh. Huwag ka na tumayo.
let us stick to the agreement, Mr. President, Mr. Presiding Officer. Thank you.
umaasa pa rin ako na magiging mahinahon yung caucus.
So we move to
Chair declares a recess. We will advise the parties as to what time we will most likely finish once we know that we are in the process of winding up. In the meantime, kindly relax and study the next witnesses you will be presenting. Trial is on recess. For the information of the parties as well as the viewing public, in caucus, the senator judges agreed to study the matter more, given that not everyone has actually completed reading the memoranda given by the parties and submitted by the parties, and given that they want more time to look into the complicated issues involved in these two motions for the issuance of subpoena. The senator judges agreed in caucus to decide on the matter on Monday, and that on Monday, senator judges who wish to ask the parties questions will be afforded the time to ask these questions again on both sides. Following our rules, it shall be 10 minutes per senator, not exceeding 1 hour for each side. At this juncture, may now recognize the lead prosecutor, the Honorable Luistro.
Ayun.
As I understand, she intended earlier to make a manifestation with respect to their intended witnesses on Monday. Kindly already exclude Monday, Honorable Luistro.
Yes, Your Honor. First of all, we would like to acknowledge the positive response of the Honorable Impeachment Court to our previous manifestation. Accordingly, we would like to reiterate that the prosecution will no longer be presenting Attorney Zuleika Lopez as well as Captain Belinda Bello. Reiterating, however, the same concern on redundancy, surplusage, and lack of necessity, the prosecution further manifests that we will not be presenting as well the following witnesses for Article 4, that is threat. Number 1, Your Honor, is the Philippine National Police Firearms and Explosives Office representative. The witness intended to testify that the respondent owns firearms, including the high-powered ones, which demonstrate the capacity and capability to execute the threat. On the other hand, Your Honor, it has been shown already that the government took seriously the threat. As a matter of fact, it prompted the full-scale investigation, including the recommendation to file a criminal complaint. Number 2, Your Honor, is Michael Flores and Bons Magsambol. They belong to the press who were present during the November 23 video conference. They will be testifying that they were among the reporters or media persons who were present.
Ba't yung mga reporter, bakit hindi si Atty. Zuleika? Si Atty. Zuleika nandun siya mismo nung nagkakaroon ng tanong, live, hindi via Zoom. Ito naman si Bakulo.
During the video conferencing, and to the fact that they heard the respondent utter the threat against the President, the First Lady, and the former Speaker. On the other hand, Your Honor, the testimony of Agent Canilong already established that the video is authentic, plus, considering, Your Honor, the defense's subsequent admission that the same are authentic videos, Your Honor. Number 3, Your Honor, is Sheriff Abe Andres. The witness intended to testify on the 2011 incident pertaining to the violence allegedly committed by the respondent on the sheriff. On the other hand, Your Honor, during the past proceedings, it has been acknowledged by both parties. Particularly, it was acknowledged already that the occurrence of this incident of 2011, so we deem it unnecessary as well to present this particular witness. Number 4, Your Honor, is the family member of a victim of threats. The witness intended to testify on the effect, the gravity, and the seriousness of the threat allegedly committed by the respondent. On the other hand, Your Honor, Attorney Loto already testified that threat is a private crime and its prosecution does not depend on the complaint, participation, and even the subjective feeling of the victim, including his families. Finally, Your Honor, the psychiatrist, the witness intended to testify on the respondent's state of mind, the nature of the violence in the statement made, as well as the capacity and capability to actually execute the threat. On the other hand, Your Honor, both parties have sufficiently established already the circumstances surrounding the statements made by the respondent in the authenticated video. The same is true with respect to the respondent's own subsequent confirmation of those statements, as well as the testimonies already presented. Your Honor, considering that these 5 witnesses are included in our pre-trial order, Your Honor, we respectfully withdraw their names among the prosecution's witnesses for Article 4 threat. This withdrawal, Your Honor, renders Attorney Melvin Matibag, the NBI Director, as our last witness for threat, who will be testifying this coming Monday.
Yo, yan sinasabi ko. Si Matibag. Gusto ko na makita ang balagbagin itong si Senator Cayetano, itong Matibag na to. Doon na matitibag si Matibag sigurado. Oh.
Tuesday, Your Honor.
Tuesday.
Likewise, Your Honor, the prosecution acknowledges the 5-day notice rule. However, considering that the decision to forgo the testimony of Attorney Zuleika Lopez, as well as that of Captain Belinda Bello, came only after the conclusion of the testimony of Attorney Lotok, plus considering, Your Honor, the earlier manifestation, which will render Attorney Matibag the last witness for threat, we would like to beg the kind indulgence of the Honorable Impeachment Court To note our next witnesses, this will be in support of Article 1, Confidential Fund. And if we will be presenting Attorney Melvin Matibag on Tuesday, then this means that the first witness for confidential fund will be presented on July 22, that is Wednesday.
Yes.
Nevertheless, Your Honor, we are requesting that we be allowed to request for the issuance of subpoena for our first 3 witnesses for confidential fund. That includes Marivic Pareha of the Legislative Archives Museum Management Service of the House of Representatives, and also, Your Honor, 2 Land Bank employees, including Violeta Constantino, former branch manager of Land Bank Show Boulevard Branch, and Ninita Camposano, former branch manager, Land Bank Deped Branch.
To clarify, Honorable Wistro, this is for the issuance of subpoena ad testificandum only?
Your Honor, the request is for the issuance of both subpoena ad testificandum and subpoena duces tecum.
Kindly submit in writing the motion in order to be able to specify the documents you want to be the subject matter of the subpoena duces tecum. We will await it within the afternoon, even after adjournment, so that we can sign the subpoena by today or tomorrow at the latest.
May I inform the Honorable Impeachment Court that the list or the request for subpoena ad testificandum and duces tecum, the written ones, have been submitted already to the Honorable Impeachment Court, Your Honor.
I stand corrected. Yes, I have it with me now.
Your Honor, may I just enter some correction with respect to the testimony of Attorney Lotok?
Nako, dapat pag kami correction, dapat siya ang magkukorek, hindi ikaw. Ay sa bagay, kayo rin pala may gawa doon sa testimonya niya, no? Ano ba naman kung kayo din ang mag-correct na?
To the
Ayos.
act of threat or grave threat, the same is a public crime which does not need a private complainant, and its prosecution does not depend on the complaint participation.
Counsel, before going there, let the presiding officer act on these requests for issuance of subpoena first. The presiding officer hereby grants the request for the issuance of subpoena ad testificandum to Ms. Marivic Pareha to appear on July 21 and 22, to Ms. Violeta Constantino and Anita Camposano, also a subpoena ad testificandum to appear on July 21 and 22, and subpoena duces tecum to Ms. Lynette Ortiz, correct? Of the Land Bank of the Philippines to appear on July 21 and 22. The aforestated requests for subpoena are hereby granted. Clerk of Court is directed to prepare the corresponding subpoena ad testificandum duces tecum as the case may be, and for the Sergeant at Arms to be instructed to serve the aforestated subpoenas. As you were saying, Honorable Wistro.
May I just manifest, Your Honor, that with respect to the testimony of Attorney Lotok to threat, the same is a public crime, and therefore its prosecution does not depend on the complaint, participation, and even the subjective feeling of the victim, including that of his family.
What is this about? I think, if I remember correctly, Representative Luistro, the presiding officer stated that also yesterday, that there are only certain private crimes that require the complaint of the victim. And these mostly are private and sexual crimes, such as concubinage, adultery, seduction, abduction, rape, and acts of lasciviousness.
We
These are the
understand,
only
Your Honor.
private crimes that require the signature or complaint of the private complaint.
We understand that, Your Honor, and we in fact submit to the position of the Honorable Impeachment Court, except that this representation misstated the supposed public crime into a private crime, Your Honor.
Noted.
Your Honor.
Before recognizing the council for respondents, Senator Judge Aquino is
Just a
recognized.
point of order, Mr. Presiding Officer. With the presentation of the articles and the witnesses, we're tackling all of the articles from the prosecution and then all of the articles from the defense. Or initially, maybe I was mistaken. I thought we would tackle the per article prosecution then defense, prosecution then defense. Is it all articles then all articles, Mr. Presiding Officer?
Not a point of order, but perhaps a clarification.
Yes.
But the answer is yes. We will first finish the presentation of the prosecution for all articles before listening and allowing the respondent to present their evidence in chief for all the articles as well. Thereafter, we shall decide by article. After the formal offer of evidence by both parties shall have been made and the final arguments shall have been made of record as
All
well.
right. Salamat, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Counsel for the respondent is recognized. What is your pleasure, ma'am?
Good afternoon, Your Honors.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
I just have a few, before I...
Nako, pagka yan si Atty. Shiela tumayo yan, bakulaw, kabahan ka na. Meron na naman sigurong kabalbalang nasabi itong si bakulaw, kaya napatayo itong si Atty. Shiela.
express some statement with respect to the discourse that we just heard from the lead prosecutor. May I just clarify, because I don't know if I'm mistaken, but she did mention that they are now withdrawing 5 witnesses under Article 4, namely the Philippine National Police Firearms and Explosives Office Representative, Mr. Flores, Mr. Magsambol, the sheriff, and the psychiatrist.
Si Sheriff ayaw niya talagang dumalo, mapapayaw sila doon. Pero meron namang meron namang hostile, talaga mapipilitan ka magpunta dyan. Pero sa tingin natin hindi magiging paborable sa kanila kung sakaling patawag pa nila yun. Yung dalawang NBI agent sapat na raw yun para sa kanila. Dito sa bahagi ng impeachment na to. Pero sa bayan ng Pilipino, nakukulangan pa rin. Hanggang sa ngayon mga panahon na to, ang malinaw at naiintindihan ng ating mga kababayan, Conditional yung threat ni VP Sara.
And one more, the relative of the family
Okay.
of a victim. That would make it 6.
Then that's clarified, Your Honor, because I also heard the lead prosecutor say that Attorney Melvin Matibag will be their final witness for Article 4, and I had neglected to consider the family member listed as one of the reserve witnesses. Thank you for the clarification, Your Honor. But on another matter, this is not an objection, just a statement or a manifestation with the kind indulgence of this honorable
Counsel
court
may proceed.
and the senators, judges. Yesterday, at the conclusion of the hearing, we have heard a manifestation from the good lady, Attorney Kapunan, with some suggestion on how to speedily proceed with the rest of the presentation of the prosecution for Article 4. And I think towards the end of her speech, which was quite lengthy, was really just essentially informing this court about the fact that they will no longer present Attorney Lopez, whom they had requested subpoena for, as well as Ms. Belinda Bello. But my point is, I'm not objecting to the good counsel's manifestation or even the manner by which she delivered it yesterday or the lead prosecutor's manifestations today. Only that my concern is those manifestations are almost always accompanied with lengthy discourse containing conclusions of law and facts that in reality only this impeachment court can really determine. Now, why is this a concern for the defense? Because this affects the fairness and balance of this impeachment court and the way it would perceive whatever manifestations or expressions of sentiments or discourses that counsel for both parties will deliver before this court and before the public. Naririnig po tayo ng taong bayan at ano man ang sabihin ng ating mga kagalang-galang na mga miyembro, no, officers of or members of the bar who also are officers of the court, and we all know that we are before the impeachment court and therefore we should try evidence and not advocate for the conclusions or the positions that we may have already made even before we went to this trial. And so I'm just expressing a concern on behalf of the defense and just for the guidance of both parties. If the only message that and this goes for both parties, if the only intent really is just to withdraw witnesses, then perhaps it would better serve the purpose of aiding the speedy disposition of this case if that fact alone will, be the only thing that will be mentioned without factual assertions or conclusions of facts or even interpretations of the law. I think that would be more fair for everyone and for the guidance of the public and this court. That's all, Your Honor. Thank you for your indulgence.
May I comment, Your Honor?
No need, counsel. Let the
No need. Palakpakan natin. Gusto pang umisa nitong si Kapunan eh. Baka pagsalitahin mo na, baka reglahin na naman yan. Hirap na.
chair react to the statements made by lead counsel for the respondent. The presiding officer took it as the statements as akin to a tender offer of excluded evidence, very similar to that. Although we are not yet at that stage, although evidence has not yet been excluded, the presiding officer took it as that. Therefore, what is your pleasure? I'll give it to the counsel for respondent. Should you decide not to call witnesses in your witness list, do you want the same privilege of being able to make a tender, meaning an explanation of why you won't be calling these witnesses? If not, given the fact that it was given already to the counsel to the prosecutors, or we will simply remind both parties to cease from doing so henceforth. I give you the equal opportunity, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor.
What is your pleasure?
Let me just clarify, Your Honor. With respect to the presiding officer's statement on it, the chair taking the prosecution's manifestations as tender of excluded evidence, we respectfully disagree, because if this is a tender of excluded evidence, as the presiding officer had said, there was, number one, there's no excluded evidence, because number two, they never offered it in the first place, and number three, they didn't, in fact, withdrew the presentation of these 5, 6, or 7 remaining witnesses that they listed in their pretrial brief. Number two, Your Honor, I'm not actually asking for any special treatment or privilege or even the same amount of time that were given to the lengthy manifestations and discourses by members of the prosecution. All I'm asking is if the parties may be guided and from making conclusions of law that in fact really just advocate the position, because I think we all agree that at no point during this trial that the prosecution and defense will probably say, I agree with you on this point of evidence or on this point of law. I think mahalaga nating maintindihan yun, because the prosecution clearly has taken side, defense taken side, and we are advocating for totally divergent views and opinions. All I'm asking, Your Honor, is that if the intent truly is to aid this court in speedy disposition of this case in a fair and balanced manner, just so also with the considering that we are being watched by the people, no? Yung ating mga mamamayan na sa tingin ko gusto rin nilang matuto mula dito sa paglilitis na ito, sapagkat sila interesado rin sa kung paano ba pinapagana ang batas sa bayang ito at kung paano pinatutupad yung mga karapatan, no, ng mga tao at kung paano binibigyan ng pantay na halaga yung prosekusyon at depensa. All I'm asking is, if the intent is just to say we're withdrawing, then That's it. Just state the intent and then without any conclusions, Your Honor, because conclusions really are just for the courts to make and not for either of the parties. Thank you, Your Honor.
Naku,
So
matindi
noted.
yun. Matindi ho yung banat na nitong si Atty. Shiela. Ito kasi si ano, ito si Kapunan eh. Di ba nag-press con siya? Napanood niyo yung video natin kagabi. Kaya wala na, okay na yung dalawa. Okay na-establish na namin na talagang meron threat. Ang bira. Prosecution na sila, korte pa sila, palakpakan. Na-call out tuloy kayo nitong si Atty. Shiela. Ibang klase talaga bumalagbag tong si Atty. Shiela. Ay, wala hong makakalusot sa kanya. Wala hong makakalusot.
As the court said, it is akin to and not exactly a tender offer. Therefore, the court will now remind both parties to kindly limit any such manifestations on the withdrawal or change or on the withdrawal of their witnesses to kindly limit it to the withdrawal of such witnesses, and it applies to both sides.
Thank you,
Both the
Bida-bida ho kasi. Labo, di ba? Withdrawal na lang. Ang dami pang karte ang sinasabi. Paglabas kasi sa impeachment court, bida-bida na naman si Kapunan. Yan tuloy.
prosecution and the respondent side should that time come on the part of the respondent. So ordered. Any other matters to be taken up?
Thank you, Your Honor. None from the defense, Your Honor.
So,
Manifestation, Your Honor.
I'm sorry.
Quick manifestation, Your Honor.
Yes,
Just to respond to the manifestation of the defense.
yes, the Honorable Luis.
Nais ko lamang pong ipaalala sa ating mga kababayan, this is a constitutional process, this is of paramount of importance, and therefore, providing the reasons for the withdrawal of these witnesses need to be communicated as well to the viewing public, Your Honor. Kailangan pong maintindihan ng ating mga kababayan ang naging hakbang ng prosekusyon kung bakit wini-withdraw ang mga pangalan ng ibang testigo para
In
sa
the first place, kung nag-practice naman kayo, kung sapat na pala itong si Loto at itong si Hilong Kalilong, ba't nyo ba sinama-sama pati pangalan ng sheriff, sinama nyo pa? Pambihira
Article
talaga.
4, and that is
Oo.
threat. That is for the record only, Your Honor.
Noted. Court already made a ruling. Senator Judge Cayetano.
Yan, si Senator Cayetano.
Mr. Senate President, Mr. Presiding Officer, I agree with you both, and there's a solution to that. Let me start by I agree with the defense. Actually, I was going to stand up yesterday, but with all due respect to a good lawyer, Atty. Kapunan, and to the fact that my seatmate, Senator Miggs, was very proud of her saying that she's his ninang, I did not stand up anymore. The problem with explaining why you're
Si Mig Subirin, ninang niya lahat. Ninang niya si Ligarda, ninang niya si Kapunan. Baka si Lizarra Neta Marcos, dinang din niya. Malamang sa malamang.
withdrawing is actually you are feeding to the court something they did not testify to, and then something the defense cannot object to. So, and if it is a proffer or a tender, it is clear to everyone, in-exclude yun. Kaya ko nga lang nilalagay. But tama naman si Senate Presiding Officer, it's akin, it's not the same. But dun kasi sa tender, nag-ruling eh. So it's very clear to us, it's unacceptable, di ba? So after the very eloquent manifestation of Atty. Kapunan yesterday, if I was a layman, I would think what you said, whether it was the agent John Mark, whether it was the second witness sa NBI, was true. Kasi parang may summation. The same thing with you, the very able lead prosecutor and chairperson of the House Committee on Justice, di ba? Having said that, I agree with you, this impeachment court, people have to know why. But I think we've been very lenient. No one except the spokesperson has spoken about the sub judice rule. So you can actually explain it in the press con afterwards. If I may, no? Because nga, I was also observing yesterday and I was saying, kung ako yung defense, dadagdagan ko na yung witness ngayon at every time we withdraw, may chance akong i-explain bakit we withdraw, then reinforce kung ano yung sinabi nung before. So I understand you completely, ma'am. People have to understand why it's not a sign of weakness. In fact, in your it's a sign that you've achieved your position. But we can do that in the press cons and other forums. But if you do it kasi here, walang chance yung prosecution to rebut that. Or if they do, it's one rebutting the other rather than the witness standing. So if I may offer that solution, Mr. Presiding Officer.
As ruled by the presiding officer, henceforth, that will no longer be allowed. Senator Pangilinan, Senator Judge Pangilinan, before Senator Judge Pia, Cayetano.
Yes, just a very quick manifestation. I was actually listening to the ruling of the presiding officer, and initially I thought he would rule that the defense would likewise be given the opportunity to speak up, and at some point when they likewise have the opportunity to withdraw witnesses. I would like to think, Mr. Presiding Officer, that would have been the better approach, because this is an impeachment court. This is not. We are not bound by technical rules, unlike court proceedings where lawyers are familiar and would really want, to make it as orderly and as technical as possible. But again, I will yield to the ruling of the chair. But just a reminder to everyone that technical rules of evidence does not apply strictly.
Pambihira naman. Paano ba nanalo tong
In impeachment court.
So okay lang lahat dahil hindi nga naman strict pinapaira lang rules ng korte diyan. Bend na natin ang law, ganon. Piligan mo na lang petsa ni Saro talaga.
Precisely because nakikinig ang taong bayan, pagka technical masyado, na sa halip na lumalabas ang bawat punto. Hindi ko sinasabing hindi dapat magsalita ang defense. In fact, yun ang original o initial na suggestion at minumungkahi ng ating presiding officer na kung gusto magsalita ng defense din para tapatan yung nabanggit ng prosecution, mas maganda sana. But I will yield. I just wanted that manifested, and I will yield to the ruling of the chair.
We thank the good gentleman for his understanding and magnanimity. Given that counsel for respondent did not want the same benefit, it also saves on the court time, and as pointed out by Senator Judge Allen.
Yeah.
These words can be best expressed outside this court, so that we can manage the court's time better, given that they have both parties have their respective spokespersons to discuss these matters. Counsel for respondent, you
Yes,
wanted to be recognized?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
May I just very briefly, so that I won't take any more time of precious time of the court and our everyone who's here, with just a brief response to the lead prosecutor's counter manifestation that this is because this is a constitutional procedure. We understand that. When we came here, mulat ang aming mga mata na pumunta rito at alam namin na ito ay isang constitutional mekanismo. Kaya nga, yung sinasabi ko kanina at ang aking kahilingan lamang ay nakasandig doon sa prinsipyo na yun na dahil
Pati itong si Kiko, di maintindihan, tatagalugin ko na. Walang
ito ay isang
Galing talaga
constitutional
ito siya.
mechanism, kailangan siguraduhin natin na balanse at patas yung lahat ng magaganap. At hindi ko, I find it difficult to understand how manifestations containing assertions that are laden with conclusions and personal advocacy and obviously one-sided advocacy of either parties would help the court arrive at the proper determination of whether the respondent is guilty or not guilty of the charges contained in the articles of impeachment. Hindi rin po ito in response po to our just good Senator Pangilinan, hindi po technical na or rules, no? Yung aking ini-invoke dito, kundi yung actually it's substantive dahil ito ay nakasandig sa ating saligang batas. Salamat po.
Noted, Senator Judge Pia Cayetano is recognized. What is your pleasure, ma'am?
I would just like to support the ruling of the presiding officer, cautioning the both prosecution and defense. I too noticed the esteemed Attorney Lorna Kapunan's lengthy explanation on the withdrawal of the witnesses. But because she is Lorna Kapunan, nakikinig ako in the same way na even if I don't know some of your names, makikinig ako sa inyo. Rest assured. I think it's her first time to also stand up. So I was being very patient in listening to her. But I did take note of some statements that sabi ko parang conclusions na to or excessive explanation of her observations which I didn't think were proper. So okay na yun, tapos na yun, pero moving forward nga, Mr. Presiding Officer, I agree with you. And I just need to put this on record kasi nga, sinasabing wag tayo masyadong technical.
Si
Pero
Kiko Pangilinan, sinto-sinto yun eh. Sabi ko naman sa kanya, diligan mo na lang ang pechay ni Sharon, walang yaka.
to a certain extent, kailangan naman ho natin, tingnan naman yung rules natin kasi maayos ho tayo, di ba? So I want to read into the record. This might be a paraphrase na nung sinabi niya kasi sinasummarize namin ng team ko yung statements. And anyway, hindi ko na mahanap sa phone ko dahil kahapon pa yon. But I recall, no, and feel free to correct me, but this is a minor thing naman. Parang dinescribe niya kung bakit hindi na daw papupuntahin si Attorney Lopez kasi naman daw napakita na daw ng defense yung video kung saan siya ay crying and complaining. So observations na po yun ni Attorney Kapunan. Hindi po siya ang witness. Hindi po siya ang dapat nagsasabi sa judges na crying and complaining yung isang testigo. Trabaho po yun ng abogado na i-elicit yun dun sa witness na mapipresenta doon. So yun po yung reason kung bakit hindi ho pwede yun. We're not being technical, but neither of the lawyers here are allowed to stand up and be the one to explain what you are experiencing. That is that is for the witness to do. Your job is to ask the witness questions. Yun. So to be clear, it's not being technical, but it's making sure that magawa niyo yung trabaho niyo na maayos at magtanong tayo ng maayos sa witnesses. Kung di na pala siya papupuntahin, di no need na to say kung ano yung na-observe. Kasi nga, hindi na ho sa inyo yon as lawyers. Yun lang naman po. Again, my utmost respect for Attorney Kapunan and to all of you. You're all doing a great job. Like I said, once in a while, we will be called out. Even I tell the presiding officer, call me out pag sumobra ako, pag medyo nag-exceed tayo ng authority natin because we're all just trying to do our jobs here. So thank you again, everyone, for your time and patience. Thank you, presiding officer.
Chair in humility accepts the presiding officer's lapses in this regard, as twice pointed out by Senator Judge Pia Cayetano already. The chair will be more mindful in the future, but I also ask the parties to also be
Kasalanan mo lahat yan. Pinahintulutan mo si Risa Hontiveros, pinasagot mo prosecution. Ngayon naman si Kapunan, mag-withdraw na lang ng witness kung ano-ano pang pinagdadaldal niya.
equally mindful in case the chair forgets or is not unable to point it out on the part of either party should this happen again. Any other points?
Manifestation, Your Honor.
Hindi tayo titigil niyan, Jervil, sinasabi ko sa'yo. Yes,
Ayaw magpatalo
I just want
eh.
to
one
put
last
on record, Your
manifestation
Honor.
from the Honorable Luistro without prejudice to another manifestation from counsel for respondent.
Thank you.
I just want to manifest, Your Honor, that the Honorable Impeachment Court has been very much fair
In as far as this issue is concerned, as a matter of fact, the presiding officer even asked the lead defense counsel if she would like to avail of the same opportunity to explain the reason for the withdrawal in the event the defense would be withdrawing likewise their witnesses. Also, Your Honor, may I just add, and with all due respect to Honorable Senator Pia Cayetano, the intention of the prosecution is never to abuse the time of the impeachment court. It is never to influence the senator judges. Neither is it to influence the viewing public. The explanation was a statement of the position of the prosecution. And of course,
Yun
it is
nga, mali, di mo maintindihan. Kung withdraw lang, wala na maraming sinasabi. Paglabas niyo sa korte, doon kayo magsabi na magsabi. Hindi mo naiintindihan. Ito talaga si Bakulo, masosopla ka na naman yan.
anticipated that the same is adverse to the other party because it is apparent that we are in the prosecution side while the opposing counsel is on the defense side. But nonetheless, let me reiterate and put on record, Your Honor, the purpose is not to influence the senator judges, neither is it to influence the viewing public. It is only a statement of position of the prosecution for withdrawing the names of
O
the
kung ganun pala, Atty. Sheila, magsalita ka na din. Ang withdrawal ng prosecution dahil nakikita nilang mahina ang ebidensya ay hindi makakatulong sa prosecution dahil mahina ang kanilang argumento dito sa magsalita ka na, Atty. Sheila. Yaran lamang mga sinto-sinto kalaban nyo dyan. Hindi naman matitino kausap, di ba?
prosecution's witnesses, Your Honor.
Noted, and the ruling of the court stands on the matter.
Just a
Counsel for respondent.
brief counter manifestation, Your Honor. I thank the lead prosecutor for mentioning that the same courtesy was earlier offered to the defense with respect to providing lengthy discourses or manifestations before this court. But I think the point essentially that I'm trying to make is that we're not asking the court for any advantage. What we're merely asking is fairness. That's all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Same answer, noted,
Boom. Palakpakan natin to si Atty. Sheila. Tarik mo yung kilay. Kanya ka kilay.
and the court stands by its ruling. Any other matters to be taken up from the senator judges?
Ayun na nga, dito na una tatapusin ang ating reaction video. Maraming salamat. Magkita-kita ho tayo sa susunod na linggo. Wala na ho muna tayong upload yan sa mga susunod na. Hindi, meron pa ho. Pero ba, malino natin Pilipinas. Saludo dito kay Atty. Sheila. Grabe, lakas ng balagbag niya. Bigyan natin ng point si Atty. Sheila, pati itong si Kiko Pangilinan, binalagbag niya. O, tapos kay Mahulaw yan. Malino natin Pilipinas.